welcome back, everyone. Hope you had enough time to take tea because it's not Friday, it's only Thursday today. I'm jealous for those who are going to watch recording on Friday. All right, so it's high time for us to start next great presentation. But first, let me introduce our next great speaker, a senior Android developer, a person who is internal assessment committee expert. And some of you may actually meet him on your journey to EPAM on an interview, on technical interview. Vladimir Polikovich. Hi.
Yes, hello everyone.
It's nice to see you here today. Thank you for coming and thank you for preparing your presentation. It's pretty interesting for me to listen to it. But, you know, actually today I'm pretty in that mood when I want to ask about people's background. I already asked Sasha why did he started Flutter and why does he love it? And let me ask you actually that question, you too. How did you find yourself in Flutter?
A few years ago, I was .NET developer. I developed .NET Universal Windows applications where Microsoft presented Microsoft Phone, etc., and Surface tablets. And yeah, so that was the beginning of my journey. So I started my journey like a mobile developer, Microsoft mobile developer, but anyway, mobile developer. And then this platform became not so popular. Microsoft stopped to support Universal Windows platform. And then I should switch to some another mobile development. And I didn't want it just to choose one platform. I wanted to develop applications to multiple platforms, and my view was on Flutter because it just at this time it was 2019, as far as I remember. Flutter just released, not just released, but yeah, it's just out from beta at this time, and yeah. So I tried to start to learn Flutter, and it's really great platform. It's very easy to learn after .NET, after C#, because languages are pretty same. And in general, structure of mobile application is pretty same. It doesn't matter on which platform we are working. So that's how I began to Flutter.
Okay, nice. Thank you for the answer. And actually, I have one more question. Do you think that someday Microsoft will be back again?
Everything is possible, of course, but I don't think it will happen because we already have Android, iOS, and other mobile platforms are just based on Android. And maybe Microsoft will release some just wrapper on Android for custom devices, but I don't think that they will create something like Windows Phone because it was really unique device. I still have my personal Windows Phone. It's cool.
Nice, nice. That's good. All right. And before we actually move on, let me remind everyone that you may ask your questions here in YouTube chat on VR community platform. Feel free to ask any question. We'll try to answer them. Thank you. And let's start.
Okay. So as it was mentioned before, my name is Vladimir. I'm working in EPAM. I'm working in EPAM about 8 years, so nearly 8 years at EPAM. So yeah, as I mentioned, I was a .NET developer before, but now I switched to Flutter and develop Flutter applications. And today we will discuss how can we save our time for real coding using service layer code generation. So let's start. And it's not a secret that most of mobile applications using internet connection or other types of connections to communicate with some API services or with databases or with other devices. And I even cannot imagine some application don't use an internet, because even calculator, if you will download it from Play Market, it will use internet to send some statistics maybe, or to show advertisements, etc. And that's why it's really important to implement a service layer in the correct way, because it's one of fundamental things in any application. And usually a mobile application consists of multiple layers, right? And API communication, usually developers put to some special layer, and it's usually named a services layer. So services layer is a layer which contains the way how can we communicate with the internet or other networks. And what should we usually do to communicate with some API service? It's not only about Flutter, it's nearly the same on each platform. So first of all, we need to implement all DTO models using some requirements. So customer provides us some requirements. We see, we have these requests, we have these models, and we just go in and try to implement it. When we implement all data transfer objects, models, we're going to implement requests, mention responses, and implementing mappings. So we see what set of requests we have, and we implement all of them. And after it, when everything implemented, we just add in error handling. That's how it's usually happening. And of course, when we develop API services, we should be really careful, because we should keep correct model properties names, for example. Yeah, we can just write property name with mistake, and data will not be mapped in correct way. And of course, we should be careful when we write requests, responses mapping. We should manage usually some headers for authentication, etc. And yeah, that's how usually happening in mobile applications. What should we do to implement API services level? And in Flutter and in other programming languages, we have some time-consuming things during that, because to implement some model, it's not a complex task, actually. But if we have thousands of models or hundreds of models, it will anyway take some time. For example, it can take days or maybe weeks, I don't know. When we worked on Universal Windows application, when we investigated and when we tried to estimate some task, we usually added few story points to implement, for example, API models and communication with server. So this task is not difficult, but it takes a lot of time to implement it. And also in Flutter and Dart language, we have some time-consuming things, because okay, so one of time-consuming things in Flutter and Dart language is serialization and deserialization. In Dart, to serialize or deserialize something, we need to implement toJSON and fromJSON methods manually. So it can be done not only manually, but in a general, yeah. If you want to serialize or deserialize any class, we need to implement toJSON and fromJSON methods like you see on your screen. Yeah, so we have simple class with just 3 fields, and we have huge definitions of toJSON and fromJSON. And just let's imagine when class will be changed. Yeah, so if we will rename name, for example, or if we will add some new field, it's not, our task will be not only add some field. We should go and modify toJSON and fromJSON methods also. And we can forget, for example, to do this, or we can make a mistake in string values. So it's doing that in a general way by hands is just very time-consuming, and yeah, it's developers don't like to do this. But if you don't working with Dart and Flutter, if you working with I don't know, C#, for example, with Java, with Swift, you can say that in C#, for example, we have to serialize or deserialize something. We can use it using just one string, like on this example. Yeah, why we need to implement these huge methods? Because, for example, in C# we can serialize something using just one string. And the answer why we cannot do this is reflections. So we need to find out how this library works. Yes, this library works in the next way. It's using reflections. Reflections is a special ability of language. So special library, maybe, yeah, special library. It helps us to get all fields, even private, and all methods of any class. And when we deserialize or serialize something in Flutter, or I mean in C#, yeah, we just go through all fields and all methods and get them names, their names, get their types, and this information is enough for us to serialize something. But in Flutter, it's not possible because of tree shaking. Tree shaking procedure works when we build our application in release mode. So when we're doing that, Flutter checks all branches of our code and it deletes not used parts of code. So if we will implement, for example, some method, and if we will don't use it, it will be deleted on the release mode. So that's in this case, we cannot be sure that if we will take all fields of some class, we cannot be sure that some of them are not being deleted. And that's why reflections are not working in Flutter. Actually, in Dart language, we have reflections, we have package named mirrors. But in Flutter, we doesn't have this ability. But everything is not so sad. And to replace writing code by hands, we can use packages and generate some code. Yeah, it was a new thing for me when I come from .NET to Flutter that we can generate some code. I didn't like it at the beginning, but after generating a lot of code, I really like it right now. So, package that solves issue with serialization and deserialization is named JSON serializable. When we're using JSON serializable, yeah, of course, I am sure nearly all of Flutter developers use JSON serializable to generate from JSON and to JSON methods for our classes. And to do this, we just need to mention just two methods using pattern and mention classes that is JSON serializable. And after it, using package build runner, we can just generate code, and we will have something like that. So it looks pretty same that we written by hands before, but it's generated by machine. It means here we cannot have any mistakes. Yeah, any human mistakes human can make when writing code by hands, and it's really cool. And if you want more, you can use Freeze package. Freeze package working with a combination with JSON serializable, and it generates not only from JSON and to JSON methods, but Freeze also generates a lot of additional methods and fields for class. For example, it generates method copy with. We can create copy of some instance, but with changes on some fields. Yeah. Also, it has methods like copy with list. We can just copy with some specific item in specific list in this class, etc. And also it generates, oh, looks like I have thunder under the window, but okay. So also it generates hash code override. And if we will create two different instances, but with same fields using Freeze, and if we will compare them, we will have true if all fields are same. So Freeze is a really cool package. And as far as I know, after release of Dart 3, I actually did not work so much with Dart 3, but I read about these features. And in Dart 3, we have features that can potentially replace Freeze. But yeah, I did not have time to investigate it well. So then let's move on. And at this moment, we discussed how in Flutter we can solve serialization and deserialization. It's one of time-consuming things. But we don't want to spend time for just machine code. We want to develop our application, business logic, etc. And the second issue, not issue, but second task when we implement in services is to implement API calls. And how can we make API call in Flutter? Because Flutter is just image. Actually, it's not an application. It's just image painted on any platform. And if you want to communicate with network, we need to call some system code. And one of the ways how can we make HTTP call, we can just write native code on each platform and then use it. But it's not really a good idea to do this because we already have a lot of packages can help us with that. And the packages are, for example, HTTP, Chopper, Dio, etc. All of them helps us to communicate with the internet and with networks. And let's start from HTTP package. So HTTP package is a fundamental and most popular package on pubdev. It has, as far as I remember, it had 100% of popularity. And this package helps us to create any HTTP request we want. For example, GET request, POST request, request with some headers, with some body, etc. And this package is really cool. But the main disadvantage of this package, we need to manage everything by hands. So we can create a request, put parameters there, put body, put headers. And if I will implement, for example, 10 HTTP requests, I will need to not forget to mention all of that in each request. And here also can be a human factor. I can make some mistake in some string value and everything will work bad. And the main thing, it's really time consuming to implement everything by hands using HTTP. Partially, we can avoid time consuming using Chopper because Chopper have some fundamental features helps us to manage our code. For example, one of fundamental features is converters and the interceptors. So in case of HTTP, for example, if we have authentication and we need to put headers like X authorization and X token, for Chopper, we can mention it in one place and it will be applied to all requests we send. And also using interceptors, we can modify not only requests, but we can modify responses. And using converter, we can convert response we have, because on HTTP, we will also have string or byte data when we receive our response. But on Chopper, we can receive any type of response. For example, here we have future response get. We just declare request, call build runner, and everything needed for us will be generated. And so for this moment, right, if we will use all packages we discussed to implement service layer, we still need to declare models, declare requests, and looks like that's it, and generate code, and everything will work. So we need to declare models, declare requests, and declare mapping, how we will map responses to these models. It's good, but it can be better because of Swagger. What is Swagger actually? Swagger is developed by Smart Beer company. Swagger is a special format to display. It's a special format. It can be YAML or it can be JSON, and this JSON or YAML file fully describes our API. So using this format, we can describe our API in the way that a human can read it. And at the same way, a machine can also read it. And if machine can read it, it can visualize it. And if we will go to swagger.io, we will see an example of pet service. And we can see Swagger code on the left, and this code visualization on the right side. But it's not only visualization. So it's visualize all requests. So put, post request, you can see we have here. And also it visualize all models. Can be all models with these models we can communicate. And the main coolest thing that it's also interactive site. So you can put your Swagger to this portal and you can easily execute any request using description of this API service. Yeah, so looks like we had idea. Yeah, looks like we have description of all requests, all models in one file. Why cannot we just generate it and not rewrite it by hands each time? And the idea was not to implement some generator for this, but to find already existing generators. And we found one, actually. It's named OpenAPI Generator. It's published to PubDev. Now it's maybe better than at the beginning of our journey. But yeah, we tried to generate Swagger files using this generator, and we faced with some issues. First issue was that this generator is not customizable. So we cannot customize some settings where, for example, files stored or etc. But it's generated working code, actually. But second issue with this generator was it doesn't support enums. For example, we have request, yeah, it accepts some, I don't know, some status, and status is enum. This generator just generated string, and we should always guess what can we send on this service, and what can we don't send on this service. And yeah, the second generator we tried to use was OpenAPI Generator integrated into Swagger portal. So in Swagger portal, we can just click on menu item and generate library for multiple languages. There are a lot of languages, and Dart is included to a list of these languages. So we can go to Swagger portal and generate library with service with all requests. But if we will generate library even now in 2023, generated code is still not null safe. What is null safe code? So since Dart 2.12, as far as I remember, Dart become null safe. It means that all classes, all fields we define, not nullable by default, because previously, if we mentioned just AP client, it can so everything could be nullable. But since null safety appear, everything is not nullable, and it happens in 2021. Now it's 2023, and code is still not null safe. And it reflects how developers of these generators support their packages, because code is yeah, it's not usable. And the second thing, this service generates a library for each file, but we didn't want a library, because library is a lot of files. Yeah, there were some additional files, but we wanted just to generate one file for one Swagger file. And what we decided to do, we decided, like, fine, I will do this myself. And we started implementation of our custom generator. What was our idea? Our idea was to have some Swagger file in a JSON format, but now we support not JSON, we support YAML also. So we wanted to generate two files. First of them was .swagger.dart, and second was .enums.dart. And we wanted to generate not fully service. We wanted to generate declarations of classes for JSON serializable and declarations for methods for Chopper. And then after our generator make its work, Chopper start to work and JSON serializable start to work. So we, why we need to implement serialization from the beginning if we already have packages for that? So our idea was like this. And so we started to implement our generator. Now it's published to pubdev. It has version 2.11.10, and it generates files from Swagger files. And how it's generated? You can see an example of generated code. You can see that we support method description on the top of method, then parameters description. Of course, if it's provided in Swagger file, we generated, and when user use some method, he can see description of this method immediately. And also we, you can see that we here have pet class generated, not some map from string dynamic. And we support different type of requests, etc. And generator works. And let me introduce some, first of all, when we generated our code, so we just put file in our library, we run generate, and after it, we can immediately use our generator. So we can just create service like this using just one line, and then we can make any requests and receive any responses. So, like here, we created pet service service, then we post some pet, and we can, for example, do another stuff. And let me introduce features of our generator. So first of all, it's easy to use. Developer need just to mention path when Swagger file stored, run generate, and that's it. That's it. So, and the second point, we generate all services layer. So all layer related to services can be generated, and it's really cool. So we spend 0 minutes. Okay, we spend, for example, 1 minute to generate, and each time when we need to update our API service, we just download new version of Swagger file, put it in our project, generate some code, and it takes constant time. Next cool feature is enums support. So we support enums if our generator sees that in this case it's not a string, the string can has only, for example, few values. We generate enum. Also, we have enhanced tree shaking. I will describe it in details a little bit later. And one of cool features, we can generate code from remote files if we don't want to store files locally. And for example, if we want to update files each time when we generate our code, we can just mention paths to these files, and it will work. Also, our generator supports different rewrites, because often when customer provides a Swagger file for us, it can be not valid. For example, it's not valid in 2 places. Here we mentioned that this method returns, for example, cat, but in fact it returns 3, for example, And we have 2 ways here. We can modify Swagger file by hands, but when we will update new version of Swagger file, we will need it to update to make this change immediately to file each time. But we have second option. We just once create some override. We mentioned that this method returns some specific value, and in future we will not need to spend time for this. Also, we can include or exclude any path. If, for example, Swagger file is really huge, we can just say generate paths that match this regular expression, and generator will generate only that path. Let's discuss this benefits of our generator in details. So we generate enums. It's new version of enums in Dart language. Not actually new, but it's appeared a long time ago. But we generate enums with values, and it looks really cool and very comfortable to use. And also we've implemented smart tree shaking. So when we implement mapping for our Swagger file, it can contain a lot of models. It can contain, for example, 1,000 models, but our application use only 3 models. And if we will generate mapping of all these models, tree shaking will not remove them because we put them to some static map. And we decided to generate 2 methods for each request. First, private one is a request for chopper, and the second public one is just our wrapper on chopper request, when we can do everything we want. And the interesting thing that chopper does not support enums, but we support enums using this wrapper. For example, if we have some enum parameter, we put enum to public method. Here we will get string value of this parameter, and we will put string to chopper method, this one private. And that's how we make chopper works with enums. And the same about tree shaking. In this wrapper, we just call, okay, we have generated mapping. It's a map of, it contains rules. How can we map classes, how to map types from JSON. We just put it to this map and then call private method. So that's how it works. And after it, if we use only 3 models of thousands, it will be, all other models will be tree shaked, and application size will be smaller. And generation from remote files. So when we use any generators in Flutter, we can modify them using build YAML file. And to generate remote files from YAML file, we can just mention different URLs, and it will be generated from these URLs. And if you want more features, you can open our GitHub and check. Here we see input folder, output folder. It's obviously input URLs. You can modify input URLs. Then we can include or exclude base URL from Swagger file to maybe use some custom base URL. Also, what's interesting, for example, with converter, it's a really cool thing. We generate a custom converter because by default, if you will generate something with chopper returning some class, it will not be mapped automatically. That's why we generate a custom converter, and it works. And then we can add some additional headers to all requests if we need. Example, for authentication, if it's not mentioned in Swagger file, we can mention that all our requests will have such headers, and it will be added to all requests. And one more portion of cool options of our generator. For example, if you don't want to use chopper, but you don't want to implement models by hands, you can use option build only models, for example. And in this case, only models with to JSON from JSON will be implemented, and you can use it with with HTTP, for example, or with DO package to make HTTP calls. Also, we can use separate models option to separate models to some file, to split requests and models to different files. And other options, you can check it on our GitHub. And after it, I make some investigation. So I tried to get this pet service API and implement it in different ways. So I tried to implement this package using HTTP with chopper and with Swagger generator. And then I tried to modify all requests using also these 3 packages. And of course, it's just my experience. It can be mistakable a bit, but to implement 10 API calls using HTTP package, I spent 5 minutes. On chopper, I spent 11 minutes because it's a little bit more complex. and it's required generation, yeah. And using Swagger generator, I spent just 1 minute, I put file and just generated it. But you can think that HTTP is better than Chopper in this case, but actually no, because if we want to modify anything, Chopper is much better than HTTP, because if we use HTTP, we need to make changes on all requests we make before. But with Chopper, you need just to modify interceptor or modify converter somehow or modify some query parameter. It's really easily. And at the same time, Swagger generator, any changes if we use Swagger generator takes constant time. So Swagger generator is the ultimate thing, because it takes constant time to generate everything, to create services level and to update it. And yeah, the only condition here that you should have Swagger file. If you don't have Swagger file, so Swagger generator becomes useless. And of course, we have future plans. And first plan to fix all issues on GitHub. As far as I remember, now we have about 16. It's not so much, actually. All of them are fixable, but we need to do this. Yeah, first of all. Then, when all issues will be fixed, we will refactor some parts of code, because yeah, it's at this moment code is fine, but it can be better if we will replace it to code builder package. So now we in some parts of code we just combine our code using strings, but it's not really safe. We have package code builder, and using code builder you just create structure of classes, then call toString, and it generates string code for us. It's more safe, more comfortable to use, and we go into to move all our generator to this way of generation. And also we want to cover all code by unit tests. So previously we have about 70% of coverage, but now it's a little bit less, because we fully refactored request generator and did not cover it but by tests yet. And the last plan to achieve 100% popularity in PubDev. Now we have 83% of popularity. And after we have 100% of popularity, we want to have Flutter favorite label, like it described here. It's a special label. So Google gives this label to some very, very mandatory packages, very fundamental and very popular packages. But it works really strange, because sometimes packages with popularity 100%, for example, Firebase Auth, I can be mistaken, but as I remember, Firebase Auth doesn't have Flutter favorite label, but it's developed by Google. How it's happening, I don't know. But yeah, in a perfect world, we will fix all issues and then we'll get this label. And to the conclusion, you can check our generator going through this QR code or going through this link, check how it works, check example. And to summarize, so using Swagger Dart code generator with help of Chopper and JSON serializable, of course, you can fully generate service layers, and it can read a lot of part of work. For example, in my practice, I have Swagger file with 16,000 of lines, and Swagger generator generated it. You can just imagine how much time it can take if you will implement it by hands, all of these methods. It can be weeks. That's it from my side. Thank you for attention.
Thank you for your presentation. That was really interesting and nice. And we've got some questions in our chat. So the first question, let me give you just a preview of it. Barak created a core network layer because he doesn't want to depend on a package such as HTTP or DO. In this business layer, he don't call DO package and calls his custom network layer. And the question is it actually necessary? Because usually he uses the same network package for the project. What do you think about that?
Could you please repeat first part? What is necessary?
He creates a core network layer because he doesn't want to depend on a package such as HTTP or DO. And in this business layer, he doesn't call DO package, he calls his custom network layer.
No, okay. If we have custom network layer, it can be also helpful for generation, for example, models and the serialization, deserialization, because native HTTP will return, for example, strings for us, and in Dart layer we need anyway to parse they somehow. And for example, for this reason, Swagger generator can be useful also for such situations.
All right, thank you. And the next question also from Rock. He makes all fields nullable in data class. Is it a correct approach? What do you think about that?
It depends on service, of course, because many services can say that I'm surely will return good data for you without nullable fields. But for example, we generate all fields nullable because of a lot of, by statistics, a lot of APIs lie to us in Swagger files, and it's forgot, for example, to mention that this field is nullable. And I think it's a good practice. Yeah, because it's very safe, and we can make just all fields nullable and manage it in our application in the way we want to manage it.
So yes, any API.
Yes, it's a good idea to do this.
Okay, that's good. Thank you for your answer. And actually, I have one more answer for you from me. Are you afraid of upcoming meta programming feature in Dart?
It's an interesting thing, but I did not investigate it enough to answer it right now. It will be great if some Dart language features, for example, will change our way to work with data, our way to work with some packages. Maybe some packages become useless with new Dart features, but it's okay, it's fine. So because this okay, while we don't have these features, we using packages, but if new features become for us, it's okay if some packages become useless. It's evolution of programming.
That's great. That's great answer. Thank you. And one more question, which I think might be interested for most of the starting developers. What are the drawbacks of code generation? Why shouldn't we rely on it all the time?
Drawbacks. Okay, maybe if you generate code, you become less flexible in this case. So you fully trust this Swagger file, and it's of course we have some rewrites, helps us to fight with Swagger file mistakes and errors. But if we will make everything by hands, we are more flexible. We can change anything in any way we want. So it's a negative aspect of using Swagger generator and all other generators, for example. But it's very specific cases when we need to do like this. So in most of cases, generation is good.
All right. Thank you for your answer. Thank you for your presentation. It was really nice, interesting one. I wish you have Flutter favorite labor as soon as possible. Hope next week after this presentation. So thank you. And for the rest of us, stay tuned. We'll be back very soon. See you in a few minutes. You have time to make a sandwich and grab a drink of your choice.
Okay, bye. Thank you.